What if the greatest force shaping your life is not your circumstances, not your luck, not even your abilities? What if the real architect of your future is something invisible, something quietly operating inside your mind every single day? A simple but powerful law governs every success, every failure, every achievement, and every limitation. It is called the law of belief. And whether you realize it or not, it is already shaping your life. Every visible thing in life begins first as something invisible in the mind. Long before an achievement appears in the world, it is quietly formed as a belief within the heart and the imagination. What a person truly believes about themselves, about their future, and about their abilities becomes the silent blueprint that guides their life. A blueprint is a design drawn before a building is constructed. No architect begins with bricks and cement. The structure first exists on paper, in thought, in vision. Only after the design is clear does the building begin to rise. Human life works in much the same way. The beliefs we carry inside us become the plans according to which we build our lives. Every decision we make, every risk we take, every opportunity we accept or reject is filtered through the beliefs we hold deep within our minds. If a person believes they are capable of growth, they begin to act with courage. They attempt things others hesitate to try. They persist longer when challenges appear. They search for solutions rather than excuses. But if a person secretly believes they are limited, unlucky, or incapable, that belief becomes the hidden architect of their behavior. They withdraw from opportunity, doubt their own potential, and slowly build a life that matches the small picture they carry inside their mind. The tragedy is that many people live inside blueprints they never consciously designed. They inherit beliefs from fear, criticism, past failures, and the opinions of others. Over time, those beliefs quietly shape their reality until the life they experience begins to mirror the limitations they accepted long ago. Yet deep within every human being, there exists a greater possibility. Faith has always played a powerful role in shaping belief. In many religious teachings, we are reminded that the Creator placed immense potential within the human soul. We are not created weak or purposeless. We are created with the ability to grow, to learn, to overcome, and to transform our circumstances. When a person begins to believe that their life has purpose, that their efforts matter, they are on the path to finding meaning and fulfillment, and that the doors of opportunity can open with patience and perseverance, something profound begins to shift inside them. Hope awakens, courage grows, energy returns. There is a spiritual dimension to belief that goes beyond mere positive thinking. True belief is rooted in trust that our efforts are seen, that patience is rewarded, that perseverance is not wasted. Sacred teachings across generations remind us that faith the size of a small seed can move mountains. This message is not simply poetic language. It is a profound reminder that belief has the power to reshape how we see obstacles. Where doubt sees impossibility, belief sees a challenge waiting to be solved. Where fear sees danger, belief sees opportunity for growth. And when belief is strengthened by faith, a person begins to walk through life with a different spirit. They no longer see themselves as helpless victims of circumstance, but as individuals entrusted with the responsibility to strive, improve, and make the most of the life they have been given. Emotionally, belief becomes a source of strength during the darkest moments. When someone faces failure, disappointment, or uncertainty, belief becomes the quiet voice that whispers that the story is not finished yet. It reminds the heart that setbacks are not final chapters. It reminds the soul that struggle often precedes growth. And it reminds the mind that every great transformation in history began with someone who believed beyond what others could see. Many of the greatest achievements known to humanity began as fragile beliefs inside ordinary individuals. People who faced criticism, rejection, and doubt from others continued forward because something inside them refused to surrender. They held onto a vision when the world offered none. They believed in a future that had not yet appeared. They carried hope even when the path was uncertain. Belief gave them the strength to keep moving when logic suggested quitting. This is why belief shapes reality so powerfully. It changes the way we interpret events, the way we respond to difficulty, and the way we pursue our goals. Over time, these differences in thinking and action accumulate until the life we experience begins to resemble the beliefs we carried within us. A person who believes they can learn will keep studying. A person who believes they can improve will keep practicing. A person who believes their efforts matter will keep trying long after others stop. And slowly, almost quietly, the blueprint inside the mind begins to transform into visible reality. The human mind is one of the most powerful yet delicate instruments ever created. It absorbs, records, and responds to the messages it receives day after day. But there is a quiet principle governing how the mind forms its beliefs. The mind gradually accepts what it repeatedly hears and experiences. Repetition has a mysterious power. A single thought may pass through the mind like a cloud drifting across the sky. But a thought repeated again and again slowly settles into the soil of the subconscious. Once it takes root there, it begins to shape perception, attitude, and behavior. This is why the words people hear consistently throughout their lives become deeply influential. Words spoken by parents, teachers, friends, and society often become internal voices that guide a person's self-image. When someone repeatedly hears that they are capable, intelligent, and valuable, those ideas begin to settle within the mind like seeds planted in fertile ground. Over time, confidence begins to grow naturally because the mind has accepted those messages as truth. But the opposite can also happen. When criticism, doubt, and negativity are repeated often enough, they slowly form invisible walls around a person's potential. The mind begins to accept those negative messages, not because they are true, but because they were heard frequently enough to become familiar. Familiar thoughts eventually become beliefs. Beliefs eventually guide behavior. And behavior eventually shapes reality. This is why guarding what enters the mind is so important. Just as a gardener carefully chooses which seeds to plant in the soil, a wise person becomes careful about the words, ideas, and influences they allow to repeat within their mind. Sacred teachings have long reminded humanity of the power of repeated words and remembrance. Through prayer, reflection, and recitation, believers repeat phrases that strengthen faith, patience, and humility. This repetition is not meaningless ritual. It is a powerful method of shaping the heart and mind toward truth and trust in the Creator. When a person repeatedly remembers that their life has purpose, they are more likely to feel a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction, that their struggles are seen, and that patience carries reward. The mind begins to develop resilience. Hope becomes stronger than fear. Faith becomes stronger than doubt. The heart finds peace even when circumstances remain difficult. Repetition works in the emotional world as well. Words spoken to oneself every day slowly become the inner language of the mind. If someone constantly tells themselves they are weak, unlucky, or incapable, the mind begins to accept this narrative as reality. But when a person begins to repeat empowering truths that they can grow, that they can learn, that with effort and faith they can overcome obstacles, the mind gradually reshapes its expectations. At first, these new thoughts may feel unfamiliar. The mind may resist them because it has grown accustomed to old patterns. But repetition slowly softens that resistance. Day by day, the new thoughts begin to feel more natural. Confidence begins to replace hesitation. Hope begins to replace fear. And the emotional atmosphere within the mind begins to change. This is why environments matter so deeply. The conversations we hear, the voices we follow, the information we consume, and the people we surround ourselves with are constantly repeating messages to our minds. Some messages build strength. Others quietly weaken the spirit. The wise person becomes aware of this invisible influence and chooses carefully what they allow to echo repeatedly within their thoughts. Emotionally, repetition can either imprison a person in discouragement or liberate them into confidence. A mind filled daily with negativity slowly loses its sense of possibility. Dreams appear unrealistic. Effort feels pointless. But a mind nourished daily with hope, wisdom, and faith begins to see life differently. Challenges become lessons. Delays become preparation. And effort becomes meaningful. Faith traditions remind us that the heart finds tranquility through remembrance. Repeated words of gratitude, repeated prayers for guidance, and repeated reflection upon divine wisdom slowly shape the inner world of a person. The mind becomes calmer, the heart becomes stronger, and the soul begins to trust the journey of life more deeply. The remarkable truth is that repetition is always happening. Whether we realize it or not, our minds are constantly hearing messages from the outside world and from our own internal dialogue. Those messages are quietly building the beliefs that guide our future. Every repeated thought is another brushstroke on the canvas of the mind. Every repeated word is another seed planted in the soil of belief. And with time, patience, and awareness, those seeds begin to grow into the reality we experience. Every human action begins long before the body moves. It begins quietly in the mind, where thoughts either give birth to courage or slowly drain it away. Before a person attempts anything meaningful, there is always a silent conversation taking place within the heart. One voice whispers possibility. Another voice whispers doubt. Doubt has a subtle but powerful effect on the human spirit. It rarely appears as loud fear at first. Instead, it arrives gently, disguising itself as caution, hesitation, or overthinking. It asks quiet questions that slowly weaken confidence. What if you fail? What if you're not capable? What if others are better than you? These questions may seem harmless, but when they are allowed to linger, they slowly drain the energy required for action. A person begins to hesitate. Opportunities pass by. Decisions are delayed. Effort becomes weaker because the mind is no longer fully committed. Doubt divides the mind. Part of a person wants to move forward, but another part pulls them backward. This internal conflict weakens determination and makes even small challenges feel overwhelming. It is not that doubt always speaks lies. Sometimes it simply exaggerates fear until it appears larger than reality. It magnifies obstacles and minimizes ability. It convinces a person that failure is more certain than success. Over time, repeated doubt creates a dangerous habit, the habit of inaction. People begin avoiding risks. They lower their goals. They settle for comfort instead of growth. Not because they lack ability, but because doubt has quietly convinced them that effort may be useless. Emotionally, this creates frustration deep within the heart. A person feels the desire to grow and achieve, yet something inside them holds them back. They watch others move forward while they remain stuck in hesitation. But belief changes this entire dynamic. Belief unifies the mind. When a person truly believes something is possible, the internal conflict disappears. The mind stops debating and begins directing energy toward progress. Effort becomes stronger because the individual is no longer fighting themselves. Belief fuels persistence. Where doubt says, stop, belief says, try again. Where doubt sees obstacles, belief searches for solutions. Where doubt fears failure, belief understands that failure is often a teacher rather than an enemy. Faith adds even deeper strength to belief. Religious teachings across generations remind humanity that trust in the Creator strengthens the heart during uncertainty. When a person believes that effort has meaning and that patience carries reward, fear begins to lose its power. Faith reminds the soul that struggle is part of the journey, not a sign of defeat. It reassures the heart that no sincere effort is wasted, even when results are delayed. This spiritual dimension of belief gives people extraordinary endurance. They continue striving not only because they expect success, but because they trust that their efforts have purpose beyond what they can immediately see. Emotionally, belief restores hope. A hopeful mind becomes more resilient. Setbacks no longer destroy confidence, because the person believes the story of their life is still being written. Each challenge becomes another step toward growth rather than proof of failure. Belief also strengthens courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite fear. And belief makes that decision easier, because the mind begins focusing on possibility rather than danger. Throughout history, the individuals who achieved remarkable things were rarely free from doubt. They felt uncertainty just like everyone else. The difference was that they refused to let doubt become the final voice guiding their actions. They chose belief instead. They believed that effort mattered. They believed that persistence could overcome difficulty. They believed that their lives had meaning and potential. And because of that belief, they acted when others hesitated. They continued when others stopped. They moved forward when the path seemed unclear. Action strengthened their belief even further, creating a powerful cycle where confidence and effort grew together. Every human heart experiences moments when doubt attempts to take control. There are days when fear feels louder than hope and when the path ahead seems uncertain. But in those moments, belief becomes a choice. A person can choose to focus on limitations or on possibilities. They can choose to remember past failures or to imagine future growth. They can choose to listen to fear or to trust that with effort, patience, and faith, new doors can open. Because every great achievement begins with a simple but powerful decision within the mind, the decision to believe strongly enough to act. There are moments in life when circumstances appear stronger than hope. Situations arise where the path forward seems blocked, resources feel limited, and the future appears uncertain. In such moments, many people allow their circumstances to define what they believe is possible. But faith has a remarkable power. It allows the human heart to see beyond the limitations of the present moment. Circumstances describe where we are today, but faith reminds us that today is not the final chapter of our story. It lifts the mind above temporary difficulties and opens the door to possibilities that cannot yet be seen. Throughout history, countless people have faced conditions that seemed impossible to overcome. Poverty, rejection, failure, and hardship have stood in the way of many dreams. Yet those who possessed faith often discovered strength within themselves that they never knew existed. Faith changes how a person interprets struggle. Without faith, hardship feels like punishment or defeat. Every obstacle appears as proof that the journey should stop. The heart becomes heavy with discouragement, and the mind begins to believe that effort is useless. But faith transforms the meaning of struggle. Faith whispers to the soul that difficulty is often preparation rather than destruction. It reminds us that the most meaningful growth frequently occurs in seasons of challenge. Just as a seed must break through the darkness of the soil before reaching the light, human character often develops through trials. This understanding brings emotional resilience. Instead of surrendering when life becomes difficult, a person with faith continues forward, trusting that every step has purpose, even when the full picture is not yet visible. Religious teachings across the world emphasize this truth again and again. The Creator does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. This message offers comfort to hearts facing hardship. It reminds believers that their struggles are not meaningless and that patience, perseverance, and trust can lead to unexpected blessings. Faith also strengthens patience. In a world that often demands immediate results, faith encourages individuals to remain steady even when progress appears slow. It teaches the heart to trust the process of growth, believing that sincere effort combined with patience will eventually produce results. Many of the greatest achievements in human history began in circumstances that seemed unfavorable. Individuals with limited resources, uncertain futures, and countless obstacles still found the courage to pursue their goals because something inside them refused to believe that their present conditions defined their destiny. Faith allowed them to see beyond what was visible. It allowed them to believe that doors could open where none currently existed. Emotionally, faith brings a deep sense of peace. When a person trusts that their life has meaning and that their efforts are guided by a higher purpose, anxiety begins to lose its grip. The heart becomes calmer because it no longer carries the entire burden of control. Instead, the individual focuses on doing their best with what they have, trusting that outcomes will unfold according to wisdom greater than their own. Faith also fuels hope during moments of disappointment. Failure becomes easier to endure because faith reminds the heart that setbacks are not permanent. What appears to be a closed door today may simply be redirection toward a better path tomorrow. This perspective gives people the strength to rise again after falling. They begin to understand that circumstances are temporary conditions, not permanent identities. A difficult season does not define a person's worth or their future. Faith expands vision. Where others see only barriers, faith sees opportunities for growth. Where others see final defeat, faith sees another chance to begin again. And when faith lives within a person's heart, their actions begin to reflect that inner trust. They continue striving even when the path is uncertain. They keep working even when recognition is delayed. They remain hopeful even when results are slow to appear. Little by little, their determination begins to change their circumstances. Effort guided by faith creates momentum, and momentum opens doors that once seemed impossible. Faith does not erase challenges, but it transforms how those challenges are faced. It gives the human spirit the courage to stand firm when life becomes difficult and the humility to trust that unseen possibilities are always unfolding beyond what the eyes can currently see. Every human being carries within their mind an invisible picture of who they believe they are. This picture is known as self-image, and it quietly influences almost every decision a person makes in life. Long before achievement appears in the outer world, it is first limited or expanded by the image a person holds of themselves. A person rarely performs far beyond the level of their self-image. No matter how great the opportunity or how supportive the environment may be, individuals tend to act in ways that are consistent with how they see themselves. If someone believes they are capable, resilient, and worthy of success, their actions naturally begin to reflect that belief. But if a person secretly sees themselves as limited, weak, or undeserving, their behavior begins to align with those hidden assumptions. The remarkable truth is that the mind constantly works to keep life consistent with the image it holds. If a person believes they are disciplined, they will begin acting in disciplined ways. If they believe they are intelligent, they approach learning with confidence. If they believe they can overcome challenges, they remain persistent even when obstacles appear. But when the self-image is small, actions become cautious and restricted. Opportunities may appear, yet the person hesitates to step forward. Deep within the mind, there is a quiet voice saying, "This is not for someone like me." And so the individual unconsciously limits their own progress. Emotionally, this creates an inner struggle. Many people dream of a greater life, yet they feel a strange resistance within themselves whenever they begin moving toward it. They may start a new goal with enthusiasm, but eventually they return to old habits and familiar patterns. This happens because the outer effort conflicts with the inner picture. The mind always seeks harmony between belief and behavior. When the self-image does not match the goal, the person eventually returns to what feels familiar, even if that familiarity keeps them small. Yet self-image is not fixed forever. Just as beliefs can change, the way a person sees themselves can also grow. The moment someone begins to recognize their potential and worth, the boundaries of their life begin to expand. Religious teachings have long reminded humanity that every person is created with dignity and purpose. Human beings are not accidents without value. They are creations designed with the ability to learn, improve, and strive toward excellence. When a person truly understands this spiritual truth, their self-image begins to change. They no longer see themselves as insignificant or powerless. Instead, they begin to see themselves as individuals entrusted with the responsibility to grow and make meaningful use of the life they have been given. Faith strengthens this transformation. When someone believes that their abilities, opportunities, and growth are part of a greater plan, they begin to carry themselves differently. They act with more courage because they believe their efforts matter. They persist longer because they trust that patience and sincere work are never wasted. Emotionally, a healthy self-image brings a sense of quiet confidence. It does not create arrogance or pride, but it produces inner stability. A person no longer feels constantly threatened by failure or criticism because their sense of worth is not based entirely on temporary outcomes. Instead, they understand that growth is a process. Mistakes become lessons rather than evidence of weakness. Challenges become opportunities to strengthen character. As this stronger self-image develops, behavior begins to change in small but powerful ways. The individual begins setting higher goals. They start accepting opportunities they once avoided. They invest more time into learning, improving, and building their future. Gradually, their results begin to reflect this inner transformation. Achievement is not created by effort alone. It grows from the identity a person accepts about themselves. When someone believes they are capable of progress, their actions become more consistent. Their determination becomes stronger, and their vision becomes clearer. History repeatedly shows that ordinary individuals often achieve extraordinary results once they begin to see themselves differently. The moment their self-image expands, their possibilities expand with it. The world around them may remain the same, but the way they approach it changes completely. And with that change, new paths begin to open, new opportunities appear, and the life they build begins to reflect the greater image they now carry within their mind. Every action a human being takes begins with a belief. Before a decision is made, before a step is taken, the mind quietly consults the beliefs it holds about what is possible, what is right, and what is worth pursuing. These beliefs operate silently in the background, yet they guide the direction of behavior more powerfully than most people realize. A person may think they are making choices freely, but in reality, their decisions are often influenced by the beliefs they have accepted over time. These beliefs act like an internal compass, pointing the mind towards certain paths while steering it away from others. If someone believes that effort leads to growth, they will naturally work harder and remain patient through difficulties. But if they believe that effort is pointless or that success belongs only to others, their motivation fades quickly. The same opportunity may appear before two different individuals, yet their responses may be completely different, simply because their beliefs are different. Belief shapes the way the mind interprets situations. When a challenge appears, one person may see it as a chance to learn and improve. Another person may see the same challenge as proof that the task is too difficult. The difference is not always ability, it is belief. Emotionally, belief gives direction to courage. When someone believes strongly in their goal, they develop the strength to move forward even when the path feels uncertain. Their belief becomes a source of energy that fuels persistence and determination. But when belief is weak, behavior becomes uncertain as well. A person may start a project but abandon it quickly. They may hesitate to make decisions or avoid taking responsibility because doubt keeps pulling them backward. In this way, belief quietly controls the quality of action. People rarely act with full commitment towards something they do not believe in. Even the strongest intentions weaken when belief is absent. On the other hand, when belief is strong, individuals often find the courage to attempt things that once seemed impossible. Faith deepens this principle even further. Religious teachings often remind humanity that belief must be reflected in action. Faith is not simply something held in the heart, it is something demonstrated through behavior, choices, and character. When a person truly believes that their life has purpose and that their efforts are meaningful, their daily actions begin to reflect that understanding. They become more disciplined. They treat others with greater compassion. They strive to improve themselves because they believe that growth is part of their responsibility. Faith also strengthens moral decisions. When a person believes that their actions are seen and that integrity carries value beyond immediate reward, they become more careful with their choices. Even when no one else is watching, their beliefs guide them toward honesty, patience, and responsibility. Emotionally, this brings a sense of inner stability. A person guided by strong beliefs does not feel lost in every changing situation. Their values act as a steady foundation, helping them make decisions even during moments of uncertainty. Belief also influences the goals people choose to pursue. Some individuals set small goals because they believe their abilities are limited. Others set larger visions because they believe growth is always possible. The mind naturally seeks consistency between belief and behavior. If a person believes they are disciplined, they begin forming habits that match that belief. If they believe they are capable of learning, they approach challenges with curiosity rather than fear. Gradually, these repeated behaviors shape the direction of life itself. The opportunities a person pursues, the risks they accept, and the persistence they show in difficult times are all influenced by the beliefs they carry inside. This is why two people living in similar circumstances can experience completely different outcomes. One may remain stuck while the other moves steadily toward progress. The difference often lies not in their resources, but in the beliefs guiding their actions. Belief quietly directs behavior, and behavior gradually determines results. Over time, the decisions a person makes begin to shape the reality they experience. Each choice becomes another step along a path guided by the beliefs they have accepted within their mind and heart. Throughout history, the world has witnessed ordinary individuals accomplish extraordinary things. Many of them did not begin with wealth, fame, or extraordinary talent. They were people who once lived simple lives, faced ordinary struggles, and experienced the same doubts and fears that every human being encounters. Yet something inside them was different. They possessed a powerful belief. Strong belief has the ability to transform the ordinary into something remarkable. It awakens hidden strength within the human spirit and gives individuals the courage to move beyond the limitations of their circumstances. Most people underestimate the potential within themselves. They assume greatness belongs only to a rare group of individuals who are born with exceptional gifts. But the truth is that many remarkable achievements begin with people who simply refuse to believe that their limitations define their future. Belief changes how a person approaches life. When someone carries strong belief within their heart, they begin to think differently. Challenges no longer appear as barriers that must stop them. Instead, challenges become tests that strengthen their character and sharpen their determination. Emotionally, belief fuels persistence. Many people begin their journeys with enthusiasm, but when obstacles appear, their motivation weakens. Doubt slowly creeps into their thoughts, whispering that the path is too difficult or that success may not be worth the effort. But a person with strong belief continues forward. They fall, yet they rise again. They face rejection, yet they try once more. They encounter failure, yet they treat it as a lesson rather than a final defeat. This resilience often separates those who remain ordinary from those who become extraordinary. It is not that extraordinary individuals never experience hardship. In fact, many of them face greater challenges than others. The difference is that belief gives them the strength to endure. Faith strengthens this belief even more deeply. Religious teachings remind humanity that each person is created with unique abilities and purpose. The Creator has placed potential within every soul, and it is the responsibility of each individual to develop that potential with patience, effort, and sincerity. When a person believes that their life carries meaning beyond temporary difficulties, they begin to walk through life with a different spirit. Their actions are no longer driven solely by fear of failure, but by a deeper desire to fulfill the potential placed within them. Faith teaches patience during long struggles. It reminds the heart that growth often requires time and perseverance, and it strengthens the belief that sincere effort never goes unnoticed. Emotionally, this belief creates courage. A courageous person does not necessarily feel fearless. Instead, they trust that their efforts have purpose and that the journey itself holds value. This trust allows them to keep moving forward even when the path ahead appears uncertain. Strong belief also inspires discipline. When a person truly believes in their goal, they are willing to sacrifice comfort for progress. They wake earlier, work longer, and continue learning even when others stop. Their belief becomes the fuel that powers consistent effort. Over time, these small acts of persistence accumulate into remarkable progress. What once seemed impossible begins to appear achievable. What once appeared distant begins to move closer. And gradually, the individual who was once considered ordinary begins to stand out because of their determination, character, and resilience. The world often celebrates the final success, but rarely sees the long journey of belief that made that success possible. Behind every extraordinary accomplishment lies a period where someone continued believing when results were not yet visible. They believed when others doubted them. They believed when circumstances were difficult. They believed when progress seemed slow. And because they refused to surrender that belief, their consistent actions slowly transformed their lives. The remarkable truth is that the potential for this transformation exists within every human being. Extraordinary lives are not reserved for a chosen few. They are often built by ordinary individuals who decide to hold on to belief long enough for their efforts to reshape their future. Your life will rarely rise higher than the beliefs you accept about yourself. If you believe you are capable of growth, your mind will search for ways to expand. If you believe improvement is possible, your actions will begin moving in that direction. The law of belief is always working. The only question is this: what are you choosing to believe about your future? Because the beliefs you hold today are quietly shaping the life you will live tomorrow.